Welcome to the Empowered Life podcast with Dustin Vaughn Warncke. Join Dustin as your guide to learning about unlocking your life's ultimate potential. Through inspiring conversations with special guests and proven wisdom, Dustin explores the interconnected values of personal growth, professional success, and a wholesome life filled with love and light. This show is based on tactical and practical concepts for life's greatest successes and achieving your goals, while also being full of inspiration to help you live your best life right now. Discover how to cultivate a mindset of empowerment, achieve success, and create a meaningful impact on the world around you, all while living with purpose, meaning, and significance. Dustin is a former associate publisher of Texas Fish and Game magazine, the author of over 10 books, owner of his own digital marketing agency, an outdoor TV show host, a video and podcast producer. And he will also become one of your best friends forever. Now, get ready to get inspired to live in gratitude. Here's your host, Dustin Vaughn Warncke.
Welcome to our show, ladies and gentlemen. I have an awesome guest with us. I can't pronounce his last name, but his first name is Steve. And what's your last name, Steve?
Itzkowitz.
Is that
syllable by syllable? It's a lot easier.
Okay,
I'll tell you a funny story right off the. Well, go ahead and complete your introduction.
No. This is going to be fun.
So I've heard all sorts of variations on my last name, Dustin. Dustin Vaughn Warncke, by the way. What a great name that is. You should do DBW on a hat or something, like diagonally up and down. I think that would be a great hat for Dustin Vaughn Warncke. It's a great name. But
would you wear that hat? Like, would you wear that hat everywhere just to tell everybody how great? No, I'm just kidding.
I like to mix things up. But that said, if you are self-promotional to the umpteenth degree, then yeah, you can definitely do that. But in terms of my last name, I've gotten all sorts of very, very, very interesting pronunciation of my last name because it can be intimidating. I've gotten Spitzkowitz, Itzkowitz, Squiddy.
How do they come up with that?
Squigmum and you know, disco tits, if you'll pardon me. Like, what? But here's of all those great ones, and Spitzkowitz, because I had a bit of a spitting problem. If I say an S or a P, some saliva would come out. So I had to learn to control that as I was growing older because I'm a bit of a speaker. But the most interesting and the most unbelievable and mind-boggling pronunciation of my last name I ever got was Tchaikovsky.
Oh, how did they get that?
I said, Tchaikovsky? Do you know who Tchaikovsky is? Do I look like Tchaikovsky to you? Like, my last name begins with a vowel, not a syllable.
Right.
I'm not a
consonant.
Not a consonant. See, I'm getting older, but like Tchaikovsky. Oh, my Lord.
I'm so happy to have you on. And so Steve and I have worked on on getting his book out, and I always want to have authors on here like myself. I've written 10 books myself, published several for other authors. Steve's one of those, my client, but also a very good friend of mine. Steve, would you be
your best friend forever? Like you said.
Your best friend forever, Dustin. That's right. And that's part of I learned that from, I kind of been doing that for a while, but I really kind of came home to me when I started producing Luke Clayton's podcast and radio show. It's heard on in fact, right now while we're recording this, it's probably being played, pre-recorded show that I produce is probably being played on 32 different radio stations across, kind of the Southern United States. And he would always call himself your old buddy Luke. It's so relational. It's kind of like why Gabriel Iglesias is such a great comedian, because he's relational. He makes things relative to his audience. And that's what I always wanted to do. I'm not just some rando podcast host. I'm your best friend, Dustin. I'm your buddy, Dustin. So anyway, that's where I get that.
Well, I'm your inspirationalist.
That's right. I like the way your email with the inspiration. I like that too. So I like that a lot. So anyway, tell us a little bit about yourself, your journey, kind of what made you write this book. I'm going to let you have the floor. Go for it.
I appreciate it, Dustin. Well, in terms of myself, I was born on a rather unique birthday, one that only comes around every 4 years, February 29th.
Leap year.
Yes, February 29th. So my birthday falls in the same year as a presidential election and the Summer Olympiad. That's how you can remember when it occurs. Therefore, the next one will be 2028. I was born in Port Jefferson, Long Island, New York. Moved here when I was 5 years old, here being Southern California, where I've spent 43 of my 53 years of life. As a kid, I always wanted to be a sports broadcaster, the Lakers sports broadcaster specifically. So I would turn down the TV during games and I'd do the play-by-play myself, like Chick Kern. And now, in my adult life professionally, I happen to be a sports broadcaster for NFHS, the National Federation of High Schools, that provides a streaming service for people that want to watch their teams but may not be able to show up in person to do so. Therefore, they will stream them live on video, and I'm part of that video streaming team, realizing a dream, and hopefully that will go on and on and on and lead to other opportunities. I recently published my first book, From Disease to Destiny. I'll answer the question of why. I have a background in sales and marketing. I have a couple, I have a degree in mass media communications and public relations, psychology, a little bit as well. So the joke about that is that not only are we talking with you, but we're manipulating you as well.
Well said, man. I don't like the word manipulating. I like eliciting emotion. Continue.
I like that. So yeah, we're talking and listening emotionally while trying to understand you. How about that?
There you go.
That probably sounds better than manipulation, because obviously that's a scare word in our society. So professionally, I'm a personal transportation provider full-time and a part-time broadcaster and spoken content creator, like public speaking, broadcasting, podcasting, and things of that nature. In my spare time, whenever I have any, I love sports. Sports is the motif of my life. I love basketball, football, baseball, a little bit of hockey, a little bit of soccer. Although I don't know a lot about soccer, and primarily I only watch World Cup matches, whatever I do watch. I also I'm a food and wine guy. I recently took a trip up to the Central Coast of California, which is a gorgeous place you ought to visit sometime, on a wine and food tasting tour. And I bought back 5 bottles and had a scintillating time while enjoying some of the greatest views that we have in our beautiful United States of America. And what else? I love networking. I love meeting new people. I love the freedom of driving. And I love volunteering and public speaking as well. Why I wrote the book? Well, it started for kind of a shallow reason, if you will, in that I have several friends who are professional speakers. And one of my dreams is to deliver a motivational address to a crowd of about 10,000 people.
Wow.
And every one of them told me that if that's going to be something that you can possibly attain, you're going to need to have a book, because a book establishes you as a subject matter expert. I like to believe that I'm a subject matter expert, not just of sports, but of adversity. Adversity being the master teacher of my life. It's taught me so much about myself. It's taught me so much about life. It's something I had to push through. I believe my superpower in life is resilience, because I've had a whole lot of practice, and I'm sure we'll talk about in this interview here. So writing the book, again, is that, well, I guess I need something to make me credible, but having done it, having taken 4 years, over 4 years, this has been over 4 years in the making. Well, really a whole lifetime, actually, because it's basically my life story around being a disease survivor, but also overcoming one adversity after another, after another, after another, after another, like a bunch of hurdles just right in front of me. One hurdle's over, there's another one. Another hurdle over, there's another one, another one. It just never stops. And so now it's kind of a legacy project for me. It's a way of hopefully adding value to people's lives, telling them that, say you get a disease, if you get a disease, understand it's not the end of your life, but it's the beginning of its renaissance. And that's the inspiration I hope to provide to people, no matter what they might be going through, what medical condition they might be diagnosed with. And that's what From Disease to Destiny is about. That's ultimately why I think I was supposed or meant to write it by God, the man upstairs.
Very good. Couple of takeaways from that. I want to first of all plug FromDiseaseToDestiny.com. It's a website that I host and I built, but that is where you can find all the links to buy the books wherever you want to buy them, but mainly, or whatever format you want them, mainly on Amazon. if you're
And
local
Kindle
in
for the ebook, yeah. Amazon for the paperback, Kindle for the ebook, and our Facebook group as well. The author Steve Itzkowitz page, facebook.com/author Steve Itzkowitz, I believe, or something to that effect.
Yeah, absolutely. Just search for Steve's name, and that'll all be in the show notes, and of course the title of the show. And really, like, reading your book was I took your project on. You were a referral of mine, as you know, from a mutual client of mine, or a friend of yours,
Alan Vargas.
Alan Vargas, yeah, great guy. Big shout out to Alan for connecting us, because my podcast, my books, at least my latest books, and the Empowered Life podcast, as well as a lot of the other media production I do, is very much based around overcoming adversity. I say a lot of times on my podcast, we eat adversity for breakfast around here, and overcoming hard times and in those hard times, recognizing what you are becoming in the process. There's a very famous motivational speaker of years ago. He died, I think, in 2009 or so, Jim Rohn. And I don't mean I know sports, not Jim Rome, Jim Rohn.
Jim Rohn, yeah, the business. I love Jim. He's
Yeah.
got a great talk from 1981 talking about invest in you. It's a incredible talk, but I love
invest
Jim Rohn.
in yourself. Yeah,
Jim Rohn, Les Brown.
Yes, Les Brown, the great motivator. Use a lot of quotes of his stuff in my books. Yeah, and so
and a few others. I'm not remembering offhand, but Jim Rohn is definitely one of my favorites.
Well, and to that point, I guess, one of the things Jim talks about in one of his, a lot of his things, he says, it's not the goal. It's not the end thing, because we go from finish line to finish line. We achieve this goal. What's the next thing? Like, what's the next thing? It is what you are becoming in the process. And that's what your book really brought out in me, is the process and the journey and what you become, because really the finish line is death. Like, the finish line is we have to push all of our cards or all of our chips in the middle of the table, and we check out. Okay.
Now, when you talk about when you die in one of your Empowered Life podcasts, there's when you reference that when you die, all the stuff that you have is going to be put in a bag and given to somebody else. So we don't really keep anything, which I thought was powerful, a powerful image of what happens when you pass on to another realm, so to speak.
I've got some more shows that I'm going to release soon, or if I haven't released when this show
please do. I need positivity in the morning.
You have been consuming my podcast a lot, which I'm very grateful. I don't hear a lot of feedback, these days, because it's still really, it's still within its first year, but it means a lot to hear the compliments on that stuff. But the whole idea is that your book made me see the journey, like the chronicle journey, the way that you lay it out. And, of course, I've edited it, and everything like that. But the way you laid it out and really talked about, and then you kind of leave one chapter with like ellipses, like a ... to what the next thing is going to happen. So it's almost like a true page turner, because you sit there and go, well, what's next? And that's what
I want to write another book. This one might be called How to Make Every Day, small letters, Saturday After Payday. The Saturday everyone waits for it. It's kind of a lifestyle book, and that most people are leaving what I would call a conventional life, which is fine. But how can you make every day like Saturday after payday? And that, how can your life make you feel good every single day, like it's the Saturday after payday, where you got a little bit of money, you got the weekend off, you're ready to have some fun? How can you make your life like every single day? So that's hopefully something I'll write in the next few years, if I could come up with some really snazzy content that will.
I'll help you. I'll give you all the inspiration you need from that perspective.
Little sneak preview. You're hearing that first officially, but
that's right. I'm hearing it first officially too.
Saturday After Payday. Do you like that title?
I like that title. Well, and actually it inspires me of the one guy, and I talked to him off and on Facebook and email. Sam Crowley is his name. It's spelled just the way it sounds. He has a podcast called Every Day is Saturday, and it's an entrepreneurship, kind of thing. He sells like a mentoring program and everything as part of his podcast, but he's been podcasting since like the internet was new, like when podcasting first started. I think it's the longest running motivational that's where I get a lot of my content as far as like inspiration for my content, as far as like the things that I talk about, with Les Brown and Jim Rohn, those are his big inspirations. But in his story, he basically was laid off, no severance package, and then they invited him back. And, he like burned the bridge after that, kind of like the Spanish kind of showing up and burning the boats behind them. We talk about that a lot in entrepreneurship and personal growth. There's no going back, when the Spanish or whoever it was, would put the ships up on the shore, they'd land somewhere, they'd burn the ship. So they'd have to stay there. They couldn't go back. They couldn't retreat. Mm-hmm. And, it's a very powerful concept, but like his podcast, like he does 15-minute shows every day. At least I kind of stopped listening to him because I went on a different path, but I'll probably get back into the Everyday on Saturday podcast. But that's a very big thing, because like, what does your life mean? Like, what if what is the deeper meaning of who we are? You've gone through tremendous amounts of health struggles, been in the hospitals, had surgeries, all the things that you did, that you endured, that you went through, that a lot of people would have given up. And a lot of people, some people know my story. I would say 90% of people couldn't have endured the things that I did, but you have to have that emotional resilience, like you talked about earlier, of getting out there and, in some cases, like when it comes to providing for yourself or your family or whatever, the old saying of killing something or dragging it home, going and finding a deal, going and making some money somewhere by providing value to someone. But the whole thing, it's all a journey. And the destination doesn't exist, because we never know how much time we have. That's the brevity of life. And this flooding here in Texas that we've had has really shown me that, where they're still searching for dead bodies half a mile from where I'm recording this weekend, and it's just like, wow, that those people, didn't expect a flood to 8 inches to fall of rain in 24 hours. And, again, we have the chance, those of us who survived that, those of us who are still here, to pull together as a community to help people, through a disaster situation. A lot of non-governmental organizations and companies and everything else have pulled together to volunteer for this recovery effort here. But a lot of people in town don't even know, like, since I live out in the country, a lot of people don't even know how bad it is out here. And the news is finally starting to do that. But the beautiful part of a disaster, if there is such a thing as a beautiful part of a dumpster fire or, anything like that, pretty much what this was, is that the community pulls together, that we help each other, that we inspire each other, we pull each other along. And right. I really feel like your book does that, as far as you go from the bathrobe days as one of your chapters, where you talk about, just kind of
pity party.
Yeah, the pity party and kind of
why not get a disease. And I guess I'll tell you a little excerpt of that story. So I'm going through 6 months of random symptoms left and right, from an overextended groin or bladder going into my rectum, and then bad case of hemorrhoids, some urinary tract infections, to go into the bathroom an inordinate number of times per day. I'm talking 15 to 20 on average, and some days I went 30. And I remember I was driving around. I was driving with Uber at that time, left my job at Terminix as an outside sales professional, and was driving around.
That was a great story, by the way you left that job too. I just want to interject that. That's in the book too.
The beginning of the book.
The creepy Carly, the creepy Carly critters. Exactly. That was
exactly.
Go ahead, continue. I'm sorry.
No, that's all right. I appreciate that. But and so just going to the bathroom an inordinate number of times per day, it's like, what is going on with me? And then all of a sudden I couldn't eat anymore. Food started tasting like lead to me. And finally I get on covered California insurance, because I walked away from my job voluntarily. Therefore, I didn't have the option of taking my insurance with me. So I had to wait for covered California's open period to occur in December. Finally get on it. I get the test. I need to get a CAT scan and a colonoscopy and all of that stuff. All the while, I weigh 133 pounds on this 6-foot frame at the time of the colonoscopy. Just
your skin and bones.
Exceedingly thin. I wish I could have pictures of myself actually, put in the book. But anyways, I should probably put those online if I can find any on the websites. But and then I walk into my doctor's office, and he sits me down. And he says, "I have good news." I said, "Really? What is it?" And he says, "You have Crohn's disease."
Wow.
That's good news. He said, yes, it means you don't have colorectal cancer. Oh, since you put it that way.
Wow. Yeah, it's all the way we framed the perspective here, you know?
I walked out of there thinking that was different, and also thinking so much for the Centers of Disease Control and Prevention, and what do I do now? And and that's when the 2-week pity party known as the bathroom days ensued, talking, you know, to people on the phone like a welfare addict, like a welfare soap opera junkie, if you will. And, you know, and then April comes around and I had to get back to work, and I won't say what happened after that as far as gamifying my going to the bathroom. You'll have to read about that in From Disease to Destiny, FromDiseaseToDestiny.com. There's my shameless plug for you, Dustin, following in your footsteps.
Well done.
but yeah, so it's awfully different being diagnosed with disease, because you don't know, you think your life is over, but like I said, it's the beginning of its renaissance, and, you know, it's the beginning of the change. It's your personal fall of Rome. You know, it's the ruination, but ruination, as I learned in the movie Pray Love, is a gift, because it means it's a metamorphosis, like the caterpillar about to become the butterfly. Yeah. And it's all good as long as you understand that when you get a medical condition, especially a chronic one like I have, you basically have 2 jobs. Your job is to find a medical team that will look after the disease, and then ultimately, and so their job is to look after it once you hire that team. And then your job is to keep your mind occupied and on the straight and narrow before it starts going crazy, feeding you all sorts of thoughts and notions that you absolutely do not need. Under the philosophy of my life is just beginning, it's going through its renaissance. And, you know, I had the opportunity to take this lemon and make sweet, sweet lemonade out of it.
Yeah, and that's a beautiful way. Of course, that's more of a cliche phrase these days. Make, you know, if your life gives you lemons, make lemonades. I don't even know who came up with that first, but really yours is even deeper than that for me, because you emotionally connect with the reader, I believe, like, you know, in an autobiographical, you know, autobiography, framework of, you know, what it meant to you, what you learned in the process, and that it was a process, and it wasn't something that you were.
I'm still learning.
Yeah, of course, and that's the thing. Most all of my listeners, you know, an audience, and, you know, your best friends out there, know, you know, that I learn something new every day, and that's how I came from a music degree to being a full service marketing and tech agency. You know, but that's the thing, like the information's out there, but like you, to touch on a point you made, like you're always going to have family members, friends, those kind of people. And you talked about this in the book too, that were kind of like, and you kind of laid caution about this, like a cautionary thing is trust the people that know, and not the people that speculate, not the people that think this option is the best for you. Okay. Oh, yeah. Are they the professionals, or did they just have an opinion? You know, everybody's got an opinion.
That's true. And that's when a life event happens to you, whether you get sick, you're getting married, you're getting a divorce, whatever the life event may be, everyone and their mother has some kind of advice for you, whether you ask for it or not.
Unsolicited advice, you know.
Unsolicited advice, like some people say, go gluten-free, try herbal medicine, try this, try that, and this, that, and the other thing.
This really worked for a friend of mine, and it's just sitting there going, no, it doesn't mean it's going to work for me. I mean, you know, take your advice. Right. Yeah. So
you take the advice, you take the suggestions, and then you figure out if they're for you, and if they are, you can heed them. If not, you could heave them into the advice dumpster, as I like to call it, which is another reference in the book, and that you're going to get way more advice than you could have possibly bargained for, and you can't implement it all. It's like the alphabet. There's only 26 letters, which means there's only so many ways that we can do things, so many things that we can take on. Therefore, you have to figure out, okay, this I can heave. This makes sense, but this one I need to heave into the advice dumpster because it just doesn't make any sense, and there's only so much time in the day and only so much bandwidth in my head that I have.
I follow 3 steps for a new normal, as you were quite aware listening to my other shows.
One of my least favorite phrases, by the way, new normal, because that implies we knew what
I,
the old normal was. I'm sorry.
no, but the thing is, like, these people out here with this disaster zone here, and I bring that up only just to add to our conversation, but it is not starting over if you are even if you lose everything, it's not starting over because you're starting from experience. You only start once. And what you learn as part of that is maybe, by design, I don't know. I don't know how all that stuff works as far as the universal laws and energy and everything like that goes. But the one thing that I have realized in all that I've been through, and then, being so inspired by your book and your story, is that harvest the best and forget the rest. The first step before that, though, is accept it. Accept what is. Don't sit there and live in the what did they say back in the 90s, the
woulda, coulda, shoulda.
Yeah, woulda, coulda, shoulda, but also like the the whole concept of if you if you have this whole concept of having it all figured out, and everything like that, if you want to tell God your plan, like if you want to make God laugh, tell him your plan, because life will throw you curveballs. The whole point of the new normal, phrase is that basically we encounter new normals all the time. We encounter life-changing events in our life. Somebody dies, somebody wants to leave a relationship, whatever the case may be. And then things don't go back to normal. And I learned that from my friend John Tubbs and his wife. They were volunteering in a mission, doing mission work in Africa for, because John was a pastor and he's retired now and everything like that. But like these people had this huge, natural disaster come through, lost everything. We're talking straw huts. Again, remember, 1.4 billion people sleep on a dirt floor every night. Okay. So these people had nothing and they lost everything when they had nothing. Right. And this disaster relief director is telling John and his wife, hey, we've got to get these people's life back to normal. And he said, there is no normal after this. There's no going back to normal. That's what I mean by new normal. I know you said you hated that, but I just want you to understand the concept and the context of that is that it is about a new normal of what happens next and what does my life look like next.
I know. I completely understand that. It's just a little joke I make about.
I know.
I'm not even sure what the old normal was, but
right, exactly. What's the new normal when you don't
only start once, you only finish once. Otherwise, a continuation of a journey in which you gain experience, wisdom, knowledge, and insights along the way as you're going through, and hopefully some good times as well in between all the wisdom, insights, because that's usually when we learn the best or learn the most is at times of struggle versus times of joy and where it feels like you could do no wrong until you actually do. So I appreciate that example.
It's kind of like, things will never be the same. So what does the world look like? So the thing is, the hardest thing in sales and marketing, and this very well in the world that we share, agency in, is that people don't want to change. You have to almost in a sales or a marketing presentation have to say, okay, if I don't have to change this, then I'm just not going to. We're inherently lazy. We got other things, other priorities. And these days it's not just like, oh my God, like pressing priorities. It's like I with the time that I save with all this convenience of technology, I'm going to go over here and play Candy Crush, and I just completely do mindless brain dead activities. Okay. Now I doom scroll sometimes and those kind of things, and mainly for inspirational stuff, but I mean, I'm just sitting there going, okay, what's the purpose of the lesson that I'm being taught right now through this struggle, through this hardship? Because this too will pass. It may not be back to normal. It may not be what it was. I may not be the most shining example of health. But at the same time, what am I becoming in the process? Which goes back to the Jim Rohn thought of what are you becoming in the process of whatever you are doing. And so many of them.
I actually remember Jim Rohn talking about in this 2.5-hour talk that he had back in 1981 about people investing in themselves, and talked about that he meets with business leaders all over the world. because he's a business philosopher and he's well known. He was sought after incredibly after his early success at his network marketing group.
Mm-hmm. I'm glad we share meeting in that. That's good.
Yeah, exactly. And he talked about business leaders asking him, so what do you think the next 10 years are going to look like? And Jim Rohn said, you know what? They also said he knows the right people and this and that. And Jim Rohn says, gentlemen, you're right. I do know the right people. And I can honestly tell you that the next 10 years will be about like the last 10 years. Opportunity mixed with difficulty.
Yeah.
Winter will still follow fall. Spring will still follow winter. 6,500 years, whatever it was. This is the 1981, so I guess you have to add to it now that we're 44 years past that particular point. So about 7,000 years figuring of the next 10 years will be about like the last 10 years. Opportunity mixed with difficulty. And that's pretty much what it is.
Your life's never going to be problem free. And one thing that your book really inspired me to think about, and this may sound weird to my friends and everybody listening to this, Steve's friends, but it made me think about my spirit animal that I used to have in real life. Her name is Preya. I talk about her every once in a while. She was one of my first cats that I owned myself, that took a love to me in an apartment my now ex-wife and I lived in when we started out of college down in South Austin. She was a street cat. She walked around like skulked, like a gangster, like a gangster cat. And these giant dogs would come by and she'd just lay there like, sup, what's up? She wasn't afraid. And dogs would run towards her when we had her later in life. From 2015 to 2019, she came back to live with us because we had kind of given her to one of our neighbors there. That neighbor was a little girl at the time, grew up, went to college, everything like that, and couldn't have pets where she was, which she had to find a home. She offered her back to us. And so I had 4 years with Preya, but Preya was fearless. Preya did not, change did not affect her. She was adaptable. And almost to the point where she was having health problems, where she was like walking sideways because she had a blood clot somewhere and she was losing vision. So she was bumping into stuff, but she still would claw her way up my lap, although it hurt, to get on the computer, like to lay on my keyboard while I'm trying to write articles and stuff. And but the thing is, she was a tough boss cat, feline. And she was scraggly, like I say, she kind of walked with that gangster limp. But she was the one thing that I thought about when I was like, Preya would enjoy reading this, like if cats could read, because she would understand that she came from hardship, and she still, it's kind of like the guys that they joke around, the guys that get out of prison for 30 years and they still live like they're on the inside, they kind of like, you got any soups, and that kind of thing. Like she was like the gangster cat. But she was resilient no matter what she faced. She would find adaptations to get around it, or through it, or above it, or or below it. Like it would just she was a fighter. And until the last day of her life in March of 2019, where we had to finally put her to sleep, she wasn't going out without a fight. And it was such an example of resilience from an animal. We don't expect that sometimes from our animals. But I've got her picture right here. I'm looking at it, and I miss her so much. But her memory is inside of me, and that your book reminded me of her. So I just wanted to say that.
I appreciate that, and now don't get me wrong, but when life might hand you a whole lot of, if you'll pardon me, crap sandwiches,
sure.
all at once. And I'm actually going through, I've been handed quite a few crap sandwiches of late.
Yep.
Even yelling at members of my family, kind of blaming, playing the blame game a little bit, which is absolutely wrong. I have a great family, loving parents, although my mom hasn't been with us for years now, and, loving brothers as well. You're going to go through moments when life hands you a bunch of crap sandwiches, whether it be a change in your marital status, a change in your health condition, a change in your career, you lose a job. And I've experienced all of these things in life, which is why I'm going to gain so much wisdom in life, is because, I've there are people in life that have experienced all the things that I have in terms of a change of marital status, getting sick, losing more than one job, more than two jobs, more than three jobs. To be brutally honest, I joke that maybe I'm not much of a company man. I don't know, or it's just
I definitely am not. I definitely more of a business.
Or it's just not the right company, or whatever the case may be. But the point is that you're going to have moments of weakness. So you got to be very patient with yourself. You're going to lash out. You're going to blame people and things and all this stuff. You're going to find excuses and justifications, and you're going to think, I'm entitled to be mad for the rest of my life. I can't be that way. I'll get mad, I'll get down, but I'll always get up, because that's just the way I am. And I can't stay down, for long. I can't stay angry for long, and this and that. And some things I've said in the last few days, it's like, my God, I need to keep things in perspective. I understand that, my body's not expanding. I'm not becoming a monster. Like, I'm still here. I'm still me. I just got to, understand that I operate within this, and you want to have your weak moments. That's fine, but you can't dwell on those weak moments, because then you're belying the body that you have. That's not really going to change that much. Does that make sense?
You're letting the world win, and all the BS that kind of goes along with that. And when you do that, and like I always say, that's I'm not interested in that. I'm not interested in negative talk. I'm negative self-talk. Okay, because we all have that internal dialogue inside of us, right? That is shaping our. In fact, I asked a friend of mine the other day that was over here in my home office here. She's bilingual, English second language kind of thing, born in Guatemala and everything like that. And I asked her, I said, do you process things in your brain in English or Spanish? Because I've always been curious. Like, if you speak several different languages, do you think in the language that, you're relating to at that point, or what? But the point is that what we think is what we become. And what we focus on, the growth. Okay, what is this situation? What is the lessons that I'm supposed to learn through this hardship? That is where, when we embrace that is where the best growth happens. I wouldn't wish your hardships or my hardships on any of my worst enemies. Okay, but I have become so much more the better version of Dustin Warncke, the version that I believe God has made me to be. And I'm still developing in that every day. What am I becoming in the process? I'm becoming the version of God, of what God wants me to be. And I think we miss that a lot of times, when we just go, because I told you before we started recording, it's one of those things that, I've got clients of mine that are just like, oh God, this is never going to work out, just negative self-talk all the time. And I try to get away from that as fast as I can, so I'm not influenced by it.
It's better to have those moments in private, because like I said, you're going to have your weak moments, and that's fine. You're going to get negative, but you have to try to operate at a high frequency. Like I told you before the show, that sometimes I'm speaking too much of my inside voice, like the guy at the character in Office Space, just mumbling all the time. And
Milton, yeah, we talked about that.
Say that again. Or when someone says, "How you doing?" You're like, "Okay." And so I'm working on that, because I've developed a pattern lately where it seems like I'm not my passionate, purposeful, charismatic self that I know I am, the life of the party, that type of thing. So it's okay to have those weak moments. It's okay to have a little pity party every now and then. Like after I got diagnosed, that lasted 2 weeks, by the way. Wow. Like literally, I didn't think I could feel pity for myself, but for it to last 2 weeks is an absolute aberration in my life. It never lasts long, except at that particular time. And now going through a change in my marital status and this and that is, just something else I'm dealing with. Sometimes the emotions hit me a little bit, but it's okay to have that stuff. Just like I said before, you can't dwell on it too much. You can't allow it to change you. If you speak loud, continue to speak loud. If you speak soft, continue to speak soft. Be who you are no matter what. And that sounds very, very cliche, but it's true. And that means not having too many out-of-bodies experience, or saying the phrase, I'm beside myself. You actually cannot be beside yourself. So the minute you're saying that, you keep saying it over and over and over again, you're out of balance, you're out of bounds, you're out of touch, and you're all these things, and that's just the worst place that you can be. no matter what might be going on in your life.
And you become your self-talk. Like we all have self-talk, you become the framework of what you believe you really are.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the one thing that was the hardest thing for me to get through with my hardships. I have health issues. I've got my meds over here on the table. My son, when he comes over every 2 weeks and spends time with me for the weekend, he does my meds, because that's one less thing that I've got to worry about, opening up every pill bottle and everything like that. Because I have chronic health conditions. A lot of people, I don't share a lot about that in the podcast, and I've gone through a lot of trials and those kind of things. But the one thing that I think that we miss sometimes is, like I say, the lesson. The blessings are in the lesson of what we become in the process, and the fact that we realize, like you did with some of the things that the Crohn's disease taught you and that you had to adjust to, is that this is just the beginning of a renaissance. This is just and another way to say that is, this is just the beginning of the best years of my life. This is the best. And again, they may not look like best years for most people. Who cares? The thing is, like, they're going to be the best years because you're going to make them the best years. My mom often told me.
True. Ever since I got my disease, here's what I've accomplished.
Mm-hmm.
I became a sports broadcaster. My dream job as a kid. I published a book. I got married. I went on an international cruise for the first time that I've always wanted to do. I've tasted wine at several different wineries, learned more about wine. I've had all these great experiences. What else have I accomplished? I became an independent contractor, as opposed to your average working W-2 employee or working staff or whatever it's called. I left that to become an independent contractor, went back for a little while, realized it wasn't for me. And I became the adversity champion I believe myself to be, that no matter what you throw at me, and I might react to it, I might pity myself a little bit, I might be a little bit negative, but I won't stay in that for long. And I'll come out on the other side a little bit more self-aware, a little bit wiser, a little bit better. And that's what I mean by the being diagnosed with a chronic condition is the beginning of your life's renaissance, because you're going to get more aggressive. You are going to get more ambitious. You are going to get more real, for lack of a better way to it. Again, keep in mind that when you acquire a disease, a chronic condition, that's feedback from your body telling you that you are out of sorts, that you are out of place, out of bounds, call it whatever, that you're not grateful, that you're not happy.
The word disease.
Exactly.
Disease.
Yeah, you are diseased. It starts with a disease in your head, because we all have a weakness. My father calls it the Itzkowitz stomach. I have the Itzkowitz stomach, that now mine is Crohn's disease related. It's a chronic disease that I ultimately acquired, but he calls it the Itzkowitz stomach, basically. And I have that Itzkowitz stomach, and it manifested into this. So we all have a weakness in our system that we are probably born with, and it's dormant for many years. And then all of a sudden you get to a point in life where you are just stressed out all the time. You're negative. And that's what 2015 to 2020 was like for me before the pandemic, where I lost a job that I was good at, was poised to be financially successful like I'd never been before. Then the rug was pulled out from underneath me before I knew what was going on. And then all this other stuff started happening. Friends started dying off on me. I was heartbroken. My accounts were hacked a few times. The money was taken out of my account, and then I get this disease, and it's just, and my
one
mind,
thing after another,
really
after
negative.
Another, yeah.
All this stuff was coming to me because of all the thoughts in my head that were manifesting. And so when the disease happened in my head, my body had to reflect that, and that's when the Crohn's disease came out. Ever since then, even though not perfect, mind you, I am better, more self-aware, and I'm very conscientious of the fact that I need to stay positive to keep my disease from becoming something worse, like colorectal cancer. Like, where my doctor seemed happy that I could have had colorectal cancer and said I had Crohn's disease, which is not nearly as bad, but kind of a warning, like, be careful, because it could advance into this if you don't, again, hire the medical team to look after the disease while you do whatever you got to do to look after your mind and keep your mind from creating more disease in your head, which is ultimately going to show up in your body.
Absolutely. Yeah. And there's a big mind. I mean, science has proven this, that there's a big mind spiritual, connection,
No doubt about
emotional,
it.
emotional health and all those kind of things. And it's hard, especially when you're fighting on your own. I mean, that's the thing. A lot of people, I always have had my mom and my stepdad and my dad and stepmom. And, the thing is, like, I've had a circle of men of guys that I needed to grow with. That just, it's like God, as soon as I moved out on by myself and lived independently, earlier this year, I started getting surrounded and having guests and that kind of stuff come in and just love on me and just give me the positive reinforcement that you're a champion. You don't even realize some days that you're a champion. One of my friends and clients, said the first time, he said, I hope I can afford you. Like, he listened to just one of my videos on like TikTok or whatever, and he's like, gosh, I hope I can.
You're pretty affordable, actually.
Like, I know.
Just about money. I mean, you got to get something, of course.
Yeah, but like, he saw me as like this.
I think you are. I think you're probably, it's less affordable not to have you, than to have you actually as a consultant.
Yeah, and I mean, try to figure it out on yourself. But I mean, and back to what you were saying about the reason why we write books as authors, now that you are one. And I remember the day you called me and were kind of like,
author Steve Itzkowitz, like that's one.
Yeah, that's awesome,
being a qualified speaker and Toastmasters, and it's pretty surreal. Actually, I take a look at that and I think, wow, I actually really am an author. This is absolutely incredible. So
it's a dream come true. And now that I've done it 10 times and helped a lot of other people get to that level, it's not about the money. I mean, there's certain book, there's certain book marketing things we do make a lot of money.
It's a little bit, I'd say maybe 10%. The other 90% is that you have to have a big why and you have to want to add value and this and that. So, but as professionals, you got to make a little something on, these kind of efforts, but at the same time, don't let that be
purpose.
The whole driving mission. Yeah, it's the fruit in the tree, but the tree is the most important part.
Right. And so, well, I remember the time I told you, hey, it's released, it's up, it's done, it's available to order. Like, you kind of freaked out a little bit. I thought that was really like adorable in a way. Like, I was just kind of like, this is cool.
I'm scared. I'm putting myself out there.
Like,
you know how this goes. And I naysay too. I listen to Sports Talk Radio, and I think you are absolutely crazy having a take like that. Why can't you just tell it like it is or tell the truth? Why does everything have to be about ratings? But that's what happens when you put yourself out there like that you're opening yourself up to criticism and things of that nature. And that stuff doesn't feel good. But at the same time, if you have a story to share, and I think we all do, I say that everyone has a speech and a book inside of them, if only it will be brought out in the right environment by the right influencers. That you shouldn't be afraid to put yourself out there, because ultimately by doing so, you allow other people to do the same thing, setting that example. But also, hopefully, and this is why I believe we're here as human beings, we enter the world in a certain condition, and hopefully that world is in a little bit of a better condition when we leave it.
And that's one thing that I told you, if you remember in the conversation, was like, Steve, you don't realize that you are a beacon of hope to people dealing with chronic, IBDs and inflammatory bowel diseases. I learned a lot from your book. Your book inspired me. I'm not saying I'm easily influenced and all this other stuff. I'm just saying, like, your book was an inspiration. And that's why I wanted to have you on this show, because it was so meaningful for me that you've overcome so much adversity and managed it so well. Because the thing is, like, the main thing that I learned from the bathrobe days chapter that you wrote about your bathrobe, your kind of the pity party days, like you described it, is that you pass through the valley. You don't stay in the valley. So many people I run across in life, I have to like pull them along or drag them along sometimes, kicking and screaming, to a positive mindset, because we're not meant to stay in the valley. Life is going to have, it's going to have valleys. It's going to have hills. It's going to have mountaintops. I've been to all of them. Okay. But the thing, not all of them, because, life is still always unfolding, but it's a process. And again, it's like a symphony. I write about this in one of my books. Stole the idea from Sam Crowley that I talked about earlier. You don't, I think this comes from Jim Rohn actually, but like, you don't have the happy high notes and appreciate them as well as the as a sad notes. And to that point, something that was brought up in an Alex Hormozy podcast, I think I sent this to you on text. The whole thing that you can have an easy life or you can have a life of challenge and personal growth. You can't have both. You can't.
No, you can't. But I also would add to that, Dustin. That's a great point. And thank you for having me on the Empowered Life podcast here. This has been a neat experience, and I hope we can do this again, maybe in a few months or so. Because
Sure.
I know a lot of people that you'll be going through in your rotation of interviews. But I'm honored that I could be on your scope within the Empowered Life podcast. And I want to shout out a dear friend of mine named Kimmy Rondon, who told me no matter what might be going on in your life, gamify your life. And I gamified my disease again, read from Disease of Destiny to find out what that entailed after the bathrobe days, after the diagnosis, and read about what was going on before the diagnosis, and read about all the adversities that I'd endured, and try to tying it back into my central theme a little bit. There's a lot in there. And thank you for formatting it and reading it and believing it.
Yeah, it was so good.
Gamify everything that you do, because I love sports, therefore I love games. I love puzzle games. I don't play Candy Crush Saga. I say if you're going to play a game on your phone, play puzzle games, because it's good for visualization, seeing the word, putting it in, it'll stretch your mind a little. Those are the games I play on my phone, are puzzle games, because I enjoy words, and obviously I'm a writer, I'm a speaker, so words are a huge part of my existence, if you will. But gamifying your life,
I love that.
everything that happens to you, because that will make it more fun, that will make it more palatable. And also, don't forget that when you accomplish something, and I took myself up to wine country this past weekend to celebrate the release of my book. You have to reinforce your good behavior. You
celebrate the small wins
when you accomplish your goals, because, by the way, when you reinforce the goals that you accomplish through doing something that you enjoy, guess what? You're going to continue to write goals down, and you're going to continue to want to accomplish them, because you know that once you do, it's fun time, baby.
No, I love it. And that's great. So one last deep question for you, Steve.
Mm-hmm.
What legacy do you want to leave after you push all your chips to the middle of the table, proverbially speaking, and check out? What is the deepest meaning of significance of a purpose that you want to leave as a legacy to those that are even unborn generations? Okay. I know it's a deep question. Go.
The legacy I want to leave. I thought about this many years ago, and that on my gravestone, I would write, I did it and everyone around me benefited from it, but that sounds kind of shallow. So I changed that. The legacy I want to leave is for people to understand that there's a speech and a book inside of them, and it's up to you to convey that to the people that it needs to be conveyed to, so that when you leave the world, you leave it a little bit better off than when you entered it.
Like you said, that's good. And really, I used another Sam Crowley quote. I like the sympathy thing, and they always say as a speaker, you know this very well, you could quote it the first time as somebody else said it, then you could say the second time, I heard it somewhere, and then the third time, you made it up. So that's always a joke. That's always a joke I loved about like speaking, and like I heard somewhere, and then the next time I think, then it's yours. You get three tries.
Original content is more valuable than borrowed content. So keep that in mind when it comes to speaking. But that's what I mean. Like, there's a book and a speech inside of everybody, and and once you realize that, that's how you can leave the world a little bit better off than when you'd entered it. And that's ultimately the legacy that I hope to leave, and I think I'm doing so.
I think you are. I mean, that's great, and and also the pictures on FromDiseaseToDestiny.com. A shameless plug again for your book is that I've got pictures of you on there that I pulled off of your Facebook and LinkedIn and stuff.
Yeah.
And of you volunteering with the Crohn's Foundations and all the different things that you're doing for, am I saying ulcerative colitis and Crohn's
ulcerative colitis and Crohn's disease. There's also irritable bowel syndrome. There's simple colitis, not quite as complex as Crohn's disease or ulcerative colitis. But the Crohn's and Colitis Foundation has a Take Steps event every single year. So 10% of all the proceeds from from Disease to Destiny, be it the ebook on Kindle or the paperback on Amazon, 10% of that will go to the annual Take Steps event that I participate in annually. Except this year, I wasn't able to go to either event because my life has been going through a number of life changes since April, actually. So it's been
I
understand.
It's
been a little topsy-turvy, crazy, insane. Call it what you will. But 10% of the proceeds go towards that, and then the other 90% will go into a savings account that I'm building up, by which to hopefully come up with more content, come up with more ways to help people gamify no matter what they go through, and draw inspiration and wisdom without going completely crazy or completely going into negative town forever. And then all of a sudden Satan is your best friend and that type of thing. And that's not what you want. And also be on the lookout for the From Disease to Destiny podcast.
And I'll be helping you
under your consultation.
I'll be helping you with that too.
I'll interview you. I'll interview other people, whether they have a disease or not. Because with From Disease to Destiny, even though it's about Crohn's, there's a lot of carryover that could be applicable in terms of the content to whatever you may be going through in life. Because there's always a common denominator. There's always a common thread in that. You're going through something and you're becoming something even better than you are right now. It's what you've been talking about.
Absolutely. I love this. And the thing is, we've also co-created a group for folks, a kind of a support group, if you will, around the book's concept of those, the IBDs. And I'm going to put all those links in the show notes so people can learn about find you on Facebook, find you on LinkedIn, and then also find you.
As my Instagram page as well.
Oh, that's right. You might need it. I just liked you on Instagram the other day. That's right. I forgot about that. We just found each other on Instagram. So
Dustin's Projects. That's a good one, actually.
Yeah, Dustin's Projects. Yeah, that's how I started years ago. But so anyway, the whole idea with the Facebook groups and really the author page and really mainly the group is to create a community of inviting people to get support for Crohn's disease and any other IBDs that they may be facing with, because you've been there and done that. And I think that was kind of my idea, but you were like for it, and I'm glad you were, because the whole idea is if you know anybody in your life, my besties out there listening to this, your best friend forever, Dustin, created that group with Steve's help to basically, inspire other people and give support and give hope. One of the goals of this podcast is to give hope by the spoonfuls. And Steve, you've definitely done that with this book, all the other things we're doing in social media and your work with the foundations that support the research to help further the information that we know on how to treat this. Oh, last thing, I was also last thing was I was also going to mention there's an interview with one of your what did you call the doctor at the end? What kind of specialty was he? The doctor
Hardeep Singh. Yeah, he's with the St. Joseph's Providence. St. Joseph Network was brought up by Providence, which is a huge medical conglomerate here in the United States. But I did an interview with him. He's been maintaining my disease, looking after my disease, and doing my colonoscopies every so often, and consultations every so often. So there's an interview with him in the back of the book. There's also different medications I've been exposed to, different treatments, talking about self-advocacy when it comes to insurance, working with doctors, even a little section on CBDs, cannabinoid oil, and cannabis, even though I'm not a big cannabis user per se. And there's some controversy regarding that because most doctors that are with religious hospitals don't like that kind of thing.
Yeah.
That said, there's a lot of good information, and they're very practical information on treatment, self-advocacy, an interview with the experienced gastrointestinal physician that is have lots of experience treating and managing inflammatory bowel diseases, or IBDs, as you've been saying. So it's a story, it's information. You might shed a few tears, you should laugh, you'll learn.
I did all of those. And you also talked about diet. I thought that was one of the better parts of the book about things that could set off or really lead to IBDs and things to avoid and things that at least work.
It depends on the person.
Right. Everybody's different.
Piece of advice I got is that you should go gluten-free.
Right.
Okay,
Right.
but and there's some value, and sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. It just depends. I've had difficulty with that one because as a Jewish man, I love my bread. As they say, take bread away from a Jew, it's like taking stars away from the night. So it's very, very difficult. It's very, very difficult. But at the same time, you might think I need to give this up. You may not. It depends on how you react to it. So early on,
your doctor,
food journal. See if it makes you feel within a half hour.
Yeah, the food journal. I thought that was great. The food journal about
things of that nature. And you can make adjustments as you go along. But you might think I have to give this up. You may not. It just depends on what happens afterward, how it makes you feel. Because keep in mind, and this is another lesson, along with gamifying your life. Part of how you got a disease is because you're probably not enjoying your life enough. Yeah. Let's face it. It's very easy to get caught up in life and to take your life and yourself way too seriously.
Absolutely.
You have to have balance. Therefore, if you enjoy eating a certain thing and it doesn't feel like it's damaging you after you're done, you can probably continue to eat it, but like with everything else, do it in moderation.
Exactly. And I love how you talk about taking it out and then you've got kind of a whole plan in the book
for
about
30 days. Yeah.
For 30 days and see if and then take a slow introduction to that food and see if that's the cause of it. And that also helps you to identify what foods work for you and not. That was a very good part of the book, and it really helped me understand, my own diet and what could be contributing to to other issues, especially gut issues like we talk about here.
Sure. Yeah, and keep in mind that part is transferable. Like, you don't have to have a disease to know, like, how does it make you feel afterwards.
Right.
You may not get an inflammatory bowel disease like I have or whatever you might have, Dustin, but if it doesn't make you feel good, you should probably take it out. So I think like I said, there's several parts of this book that are not just for people that have an inflammatory bowel disease. It's for anybody, including that diet section.
And so inspirational. Thank you so much, Steve, for joining us.
This has been great, and congratulations on all your success, and thank you for allowing me to be a part of your universe. It's really, really, it's really amazing, and I really appreciate everything.
When I find guys like you, like I used to say, the cute kids or anything like, I just want to eat you with the spoon, it's just kind of like that cute, like it really inspires me to see somebody that overcomes adversity through all the crap that life is throwing at you, all the curveballs you dealt with. You chronicle all of that. Again, guys, definitely go on Amazon, look up From Disease to Destiny, or I've got the links at FromDiseaseToDestiny.com, and you could reach out to Steve with any questions or anything like that on there as well. Or reach out to me. You guys know where to find me, and I put all my contact info, including my phone number, in the show notes. So, it's all good.
Thank you, Dustin. I really appreciate it.
Hey, thank you so much for being on our show, and God bless you, Steve.
God bless. Be well.
Thank you for listening to The Empowered Life with Dustin Vaughn Warncke. To learn more about Dustin, please visit his creator hub at dustinsprojects.com. Warncke Enterprises, Dustin's very own digital services company, can be found at businesswithdustin.com, and his books are available at either website or at dustinsbooks.com. Audio presentations of each of Dustin's latest books can be found on YouTube and streamed at no cost. Please subscribe to the Empowered Life podcast on your favorite podcast app, and thank you for your support and sharing this show with a friend.